At Christmas dinner, they mocked me for $100, until I did this. The smell of pine and roasted turkey usually brought warmth to Alara's breast, but tonight it heightened the chill in her stomach. Christmas dinner at her Aunt Carol and Uncle Robert's sprawling, lavishly appointed house was less a family meal than an annual reminder of their financial superiority. Alara was a freelance graphic designer in the same city that took more from you than many could offer, but she felt like some shabby mismatched ornament, dull and with little knocks to it, surrounded by their shiny baubles. Her cousins, Bethany and Marcus, looked at each other knowingly as she walked in, their designer sweaters and perfectly coiffed hair at odds with her second-hand velvet dress. It was just another evening. Talk was of stock portfolios, recent luxury vacations, and the challenges in finding good household staff. Alara attempted to join in, bringing up a personal project she'd been working on, a set of illustrations for an independent children's book sponsored by their local charity. It was received with polite, dismissive nods. "That's terrific, dear," Aunt Carol purred, her gaze already wandering the table for new victims. "So fulfilling." When the plum pudding was served after the main course, Aunt Carol cleared her throat, signaling to all of us that she was about to perform her annual generosity routine. She drew a crisp, white envelope from somewhere inside her coat. "Oh, now, Alara," she said in a voice that wafted over the clinking of silverware. "Your uncle and I understand things can be a little snug for you." She gave a saccharine smile that didn't touch her eyes. "Heck, look at all of your artistic pursuits." Alara's cheeks burned. She knew what was coming. Aunt Carol offered the envelope. "We thought we would give you a little assist, a little bit of Christmas cheer, perhaps some decent art supplies or maybe a new, dependable laptop for your freelance job." Uncle Robert laughed, a loud sound of mirthlessness. "Don't spend it all at the same place, Alara." Alara accepted the envelope, her fingers shaking. Inside, she uncovered a crisp $100 bill. $100. It wasn't nothing, of course, but the way it came across, the patronizing tone, the barely disguised disdain, made it sting. Cousin Bethany added, "Oh, sweet mummy, that's so nice. And Alara, maybe you can finally get that new winter coat you said you wanted last year?" There was a fake poignancy in her voice. Marcus laughed into his wineglass. At that there was laughter, a ripple of smug, superior mirth. It was not loud, but it echoed in Alara's bones, each ripple another cut of shame. Her family, those who were meant to love and support her, laughed openly at her financial struggle during their extravagant Christmas dinner. Tears burned in her eyes, but she choked them down. Not here. Not now. Her eyes dropped to the $100 bill and she grew hard. A sliver of resistance sparked to life inside her. They considered it a failure on her part. She would use it as a representation of her will. "Thank you, Aunt Carol, Uncle Robert," Alara said, her voice strong despite the quaking in her core. "This is very generous." She pushed the bill into her purse, trying to smile. The rest of the evening was a haze of polite denials and insurrectionary thoughts. She left early, feigning a headache, the $100 bill heavy and burning in her purse. The sound of their laughter haunted her for weeks. The $100 remained on her desk. A perpetually accused could find heavy, archival, pretty. With the money that was left over, she bought a package of specialized pens with fine tips and extremely small vial of gold ink, shaped like something you swore you must have dreamt, so beautiful it seemed unreal. She didn't dip into her regular stock. It was their money, spent for her purpose. She sat down, then, and funneled her frustration and passion, her quiet determination, into one intricate design. It was a line-cut print of a naked tree pointing to the sky, its branches entwined with constellations, roots fanning out at its base in a web of resilience. Around it, in the gold ink, she wrote one quote from a poet whose work she dearly loved: "The strongest oaks grow in the roughest winds." Took weeks, sometimes long into the night. When it was done, she paid to have it professionally framed. A small, quiet masterpiece. The actual "until I did this" moment didn't happen at the next Christmas dinner, but long before that. For months later, a well-known local gallery launched a competition for up-and-coming artists. The theme? Resilience. Alara squinted down at her print, sucked in a deep breath. She filled out the application, paid a small entry fee, out of her own pocket, from actual freelance work, and sent in the resilient oak. And then a phone call 2 months later. It was the gallery. Not only had her piece been chosen, it was awarded the top prize. There was prize money to win, enough to pay off some old debts and purchase better equipment. It also wanted to debut the resilient oak as the star of its new show, and had a buyer, a wealthy patron from their town who was known for supporting local artists, lined up at $5,000. Her first call was after calling her mother, who had always believed in her, to Aunt Carol. She worked to keep her voice level, polite. Aunt Carol, I'm just grateful again for the super generous $100 you gave me at Christmas dinner. There was a pause. Oh, that old thing? All right, darling, always willing to oblige. There was friendliness in her voice now, suspicion relaxing perhaps with a hope for further entreaty. Things looking up for you. Actually, yes, Alara answered, and for the first time a real smile appeared on her face. That $100 is just what I was waiting for. I used it on specialized paper and ink for a new piece. It has just taken first prize at the Hawthorne Gallery's Resilience Show, and it is sold for $5,000. The gallery is having a private viewing next Friday, and Dad, Uncle Robert, Bethany, and Marcus, I want you all to come. It would mean so much to me to have my family there. A stunned silence met her on the other end of the line. Alara could almost hear Aunt Carol doing the math. $5,000. From her. 5,000? Aunt Carol faltered, and her well-rehearsed composure finally cracked. Alara, that's wonderful. Of course, we'll be there. Robert will be thrilled. We always knew you were talented, my dear. Always. The following Friday they showed up. There was Aunt Carol, Uncle Robert, Bethany, and Marcus, all shifting uncomfortably in their Sunday best, trying to look sufficiently proud. At the Resilient Oak, Alara stood glowing, fielding questions from collectors and critics. The gallery buzz was electric. As her family came forward, their expressions of trepidation and admiration on their faces, Alara looked into their eyes. This is it, she said, pointing to the framed work. The one I began with your Christmas gift, Aunt Carol. The $100 was enough to cover the materials. Aunt Carol did look rather pale. Magnificent, Alara. Truly. Her tone was gentler than its usual condescension. Yes, said Uncle Robert vehemently, but with the rings toned down. A real investment, that $100. Alara simply smiled. It was. Thing I've ever invested in myself. She pivoted and addressed the crowd, speaking louder. In the spirit of that original generous gift, I'm donating a portion of the prize winnings to create an art scholarship to be awarded in my name through AHFP in support of homegrown talent for students residing in underserved areas of South Los Angeles, inspired by Homeboy Industries. She didn't need to see their faces to know that they were no longer pale but red. The crowd clapped its approval, not only for her art but also for her heart. Then as they were leaving, Aunt Carol barred her way through the door. Alara, she murmured, an unusual tremble in her voice. I'm sorry about all that. Alara held up a hand. Aunt Carol, you can have Christmas every day, she whispered softly. She stepped outdoors into the cool evening air, free from their judgment and instead buoyed by her own silent victory. The $100 bill had been a weapon in their hands, but in hers it was the seed of a thriving dream. And the best part? She hadn't squandered it all in some crazy place. She was spending it on herself, and the return was priceless. Thanks for watching.